What's up, fam? How are y'all? Is this the young service, the youngin service? Yeah. I dig it. All right. I think what's really interesting about just coming here, I really am honored because me and Luke go pretty far back. Me and Carson go pretty far back. Me and Tevin. This was actually a picture I found. It was 2 years ago yesterday. We all were in very different stages of our life. I'm wearing who is that? Man, I can't believe I'm going blank on who's the guy in my shirt? Yeah, Garth Brooks, sorry. I'm a big fan. Man, Garth is just like one of my, I just love that dude. Luke chose to, I said last service he was pondering on the Lord as we were laughing, but each one of us were in very different seasons of our life 2 years ago. Some of us, Tevin, I think, was maybe in Arizona at the time, or maybe still in Nashville, I think. Noah is the guy to the blue. He's actually my pastor. We just planted a church, by the way. I'm Grant Skeldon. I'm from Nashville. I'm Texan, though. I'm from Texas, so I always say I'm a Texan that lives in Nashville. I'll always be a Texan. Don't worry, I don't care about the Cowboys. I'm from Dallas, but I want them to win. I think that'd be cool. And Noah is from Atlanta area, just planted a church called Quay Church, which Luke and this church has been so encouraging towards. And it launched about 3 weeks ago. Over 500 people showed up, 3 different services. I mean, we're like young church plant first time. Noah's such an evangelist, like shares the gospel. So many young people. Here's what's crazy. It's that cheat code to plant a church in Nashville right now. Like legit, y'all, like 70%, I had them raise their hand, like how many of you guys have lived here longer than 2 years? And 70% of them hadn't. Like it's that new, so many people moving there. And so Noah preached the gospel, and first week, we have 38 people give their life to Christ, and just did baptisms this week, and I actually got to baptize. My niece and nephew live with us, and my niece came up and was like, I want to get baptized, and so got to baptize her this last Sunday. And I just think about all together and how a lot of us have known each other very closely through retreats, through doing things together for years. And there's a quote that often said, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And yeah, I just want to say for young people, your friends really, really do matter. Like you 4 girls and young people, I hope you guys are hanging with some good people. Are they? Okay, if y'all giggling, I don't know if that's like giggling because it's godly people, or you're like, okay, you guys are not giving me the signs that they're good people, all right? But you want to hang out with the people that, I would even say, not just even love God, but also are driven to do things for God. Like, you can often know Christians that are like, just waiting for God to give them a sign, and there's others like, I'm hungry to see God move, and he tends to, and I'm just moving and finding where God's moving and joining him in it. And I think what differentiates, some of the young friends I've got, because you guys do know, I think y'all know, that it's not normal for someone as young as Luke to be running this thing, right? It's pretty abnormal, but also there's something beautiful that's happening here. Like, y'all, I talk about y'all all the time. Like, I really do think there are not a lot of churches that are really navigating multi-generational relationships like you guys are doing. And I know there's challenges that come with that. Like, I think of whenever David and Saul met, and David's like, hey, I want to fight Goliath. He's like, man, you got a lot of zeal. You got a lot of passion. Don't young people tend to? Like, they have all this passion. And then he says, hey, I don't think I want to wear armor. And Saul was probably like, bro, do you know who you're fighting? Like, this is the way we've always done it. And it takes trust for generations to be like, and he's like just a little hipster kid, skinny jeans or whatever they wear now. And he's like, no, I was thinking slingshot. He's like, bro, are you joking me? And the navigating of generations where he's like, all right, I feel like I don't understand you fully. You don't do it exactly the same. You don't dress the same. And you guys are probably seeing this with generations coming in. But it seems like God's hand is on you. And it seems like your motives are for him. And I'm going to trust And this beautiful thing happens where there's maybe, I don't know about y'all, but I look at the world today and the next generation, and I often think, man, one of the biggest problems is they're often not crippled. They are, I would say for young people, coddled by their parents. Anyone agree a little bit? Sometimes they can be coddled by their parents. They can be then criticized by their bosses. I think this is one of the first generations that I've heard this is becoming somewhat of a thing where the parent comes with them to the interview. Or the parent calls in like, hey, my son's gonna be late. It's like, man, it's a new world. But also, Jesus had to deal with this, with the next generation. Do you know, James and John, they had their mom get involved and say, hey, Jesus, I think my kids would be good for the left hand and the right hand whenever you get to heaven. Like, that's what Jesus had to deal with too, of like getting involved. So if they're coddled by their parents, they're criticized by their bosses, I would say they're crippled by their colleges. Any of you guys seen young people, they're going to college and then they get out and it's like they're in debt. They are a little bit aimless, trying to find a job. It can lead to anxiety. It's like, I thought I was supposed to be there or here. And it creates even, I'm seeing like with a spike we're seeing in depression. And so coddled, criticized, crippled by colleges, I'd say consumed by technology. And then lastly, just confused by our culture. That it's such a unique time, and you might be wondering, okay, man, this guy, Luke brought a real uplifting guy today. I want to help say, what do we do about this next gen problem? Because I show you this picture, and I think, why do we focus so much on those who are leaving the church? And what if we started finding what are the common denominators among those who are not leaving the church who are young, but leading the church who are young? And the number one thing I found, if we want to be a part of contributing to a revival in the church today, of all generations, let me just tell you what it isn't to reach the next generation. It isn't skinny jeans. You don't want to wear them. Your wife doesn't want you to wear them. Your kids don't want you to wear them. And apparently the kids don't even wear them anymore. It's not tattoos. Tattoos are dated. You might do it and be a little relevant for, I've accepted when I got these tattoos that one day these will be old people tattoos. Because you guys, someone here is gonna have it. If I see barbed wire or tribal tattoos, I think that guy got that tattoos in the 90s. Like that was the thing then, but now it's, you guys know, like trends change so fast. Billy Graham says, the gospel never changes, but the methods always do. And so the answer isn't skinny jeans. It's not that you need to become really cool. You don't get a cool haircut. You don't got to do any of these things to reach the next generation. But I'm convinced that the number one thing you guys can do is you have a beautiful opportunity where you have generations coming together. You have something where God's doing something in the next generation. Is the number one thing you can do is what Jesus said in his final words. And I believe his last words should be our first priority. And that is go and make disciples. He told us to go and make disciples. If you think about your last words, if you've ever been at someone at their deathbed, or you ever heard someone that knows, hey, they've been given really bad news and know, man, I don't have as much time to live. We are thoughtful about our last words. We are thoughtful about the last things we do. And Jesus, you got to think, when God comes back in the flesh as Christ, risen, he says, go and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded. But we're in a church today where making disciples and having a discipleship relationship, and this isn't just older people to younger people. I believe that every single person is at their best and healthiest place when they have someone who's discipling them and pouring into them and someone they're pouring into. There's something about that. And what's beautiful is there's always someone who's a couple steps ahead of you that's experienced stages of life that you haven't experienced that is helpful. Like when you, actually this is funny, it's coming to mind is, I'm about to celebrate 3 years of marriage. And when do you start getting claps for, is it about 20 years? It's like, no, because usually they clap, but is it gotta be 5? Like, it's like, bro, you ain't done nothing. You ain't even there yet. You might not even make it to 3. Like, you got to get 7 of completion, and then after that, everyone just, hey, I'm having a baby. Everyone claps. I'm going to start just, okay, 3 years. And what I notice is when you're single, everybody asks you, hey, when are you gonna get in a relationship? When are you gonna find, like the grandmas or the moms, they're always like, or mom or dad, like, when are you gonna find someone? Then once you find someone, y'all know what the next question is. You just dated for 2 weeks. Yo, when are you guys gonna finally get married? You guys think about marriage? It's like always the next stage. So there's always someone at the next stage that can help you when you get to the next stage. And then I'm just along this path. You guys are I've started to ask. I'm like, what's the next question? Okay, what's the next question? Because we ask these questions all the time. So I got in a relationship. Then they always ask all the time, when you get married? So I got married. I just got engaged. So I proposed. Hey, when are you gonna propose? So when I proposed, I'm telling you, at my proposal, they're like, when's the wedding? All right, she just found out I want to have a wedding, and they're asking, when's the wedding? So then, even leading up to the wedding, well, so when do you guys think you're going to have kids? I don't know. We don't have a wife yet. You know, there's a process here if I want to stay in this ministry piece. And so I have to have the wife, and then I can have the kids. And then I started asking, because I'm in it. I don't have any kids. So I'm getting asked all the time, when are you going to have kids? When are you going to have kids? All my friends in that picture have kids. And so then I was like, what's the next question? Do you guys know what it is? When are you gonna have your other kid? It's like this non-existent, you gotta have a second kid. And then I started asking, when is it enough kids? Like, when do they stop asking, when are you gonna have kids? I think, when is it you graduate? But there's always a new stage. And unfortunately, even there's the stages of, okay, imagine discipleship in the culture where you have someone pouring into you because they've been a little further than you. You have someone younger because you've been a little further than them, because there's always a new stage. Even there's then empty nester season. Anyone going through the empty nester season in the last 5 years? That's a whole new season where it's like, hey, they don't really teach you this in seminary. They don't really teach you this in school. Like, what does that season look like? What does legacy look like? What does it look like when, unfortunately, you may lose your spouse? Or you pass before them, or they pass before you? What does it look like when you retire and you want to pour into your grandkids or pour into the next generation? There's always a new season. And so this isn't a message for the next generation. This is a message for all generations. This is a message for the people of God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's called us all to discipleship. And there's no one who's obsolete or no one who doesn't matter in this if we view discipleship as the means. And that's what Jesus chose to do. And if you really think about it, y'all, we don't even know what Jesus was doing until he made disciples. For 30 years, God lived on earth, and we only have one story about when he was 12 and when he was a baby. Other than that, it was once he started finding these younger people and pouring into them, and then we start. Most of the gospel, by the way, is not even sermons. It's conversations with his disciples. We make them into sermons, but we're taking conversations with his disciples, experiences with his disciples, and turn them into sermons. But Jesus technically wasn't this preacher all the time. He was a disciple maker. And so if that's what he did, and that's what he said, what if his last words were our first priority? Let me pray, and then I want to get into what could it practically look like here at Lifebridge. God, I thank you for Lifebridge. I thank you for what you're doing here. I've been to hundreds of churches that want to see the next generation in their church. They want to see multiple generations. They want to see just this move of God. And I come here, and I've been hearing about it. I've experienced it a bit before. And God, let us not take it lightly that there's such opportunity here. We see your Spirit moving. And we don't want to just be a spectator to it. We want to be someone to experience it, someone to be a part of it. Not members of a church, but owners in a mission, God. Give favor and insight and just beautiful stories of relationships coming together no matter what generation. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, Luke said this. What is discipleship? What does it practically look like? I think we confuse mentorship and discipleship a lot, and I think both are very helpful, but they aren't exactly the same, especially in function. To me, mentorship is if someone said, come and meet with me. Some of us have any of you guys ever had, please raise your hands, if you had someone mentor you, like they're like, hey, I'll meet with you a couple times, or even once to help you in a certain area of your life. Anyone? I think many of us, we've usually had a lot more mentors than we've had disciple makers, because whether it's like, hey, I'm a newlywed and I would love some advice on marriage, or I'm going into a new job, or I'm moving into whatever season or stage or challenge, we get mentorship, and it could change the way we see ourselves, it could change the way we see God, it can change the way we see our mission, it changes the way we see our spouse, or our children. Mentorship is very, very powerful. It just isn't the exact same as discipleship. Mentorship is come and meet with me, but Jesus didn't say to Peter, hey, let's meet once a week at Starbucks, or once a week at god-awful Waffle House, or one of these random places people for some reason go. Like, I've always wondered, who is thinking Arby's? Like, I've never heard someone say, hey, I was thinking Arby's. I just always thought that was the most random thing to make I think you wanted, like, I was manifesting it. You're trying to hope that people would start thinking Arby's. I've always thought that was funny, is like Burger King, Arby's, Long John Silver's. I've always wondered who is eating there. Like, if someone's here, I'd love to disciple me and what I should order there. But it's come and meet with me at a location for a short time and then go. But Jesus didn't say meet with me once a week for 3 years. He said follow me and I'll make you this. And so I do think that there's a difference, again, from mentorship, disciple, come and meet with me and come and follow me. And when I say follow me, you might be like, well, what do you mean follow? Because in a sense, it's very hard to do exactly what Jesus did. It can feel almost like a 3-year camping trip, where it's like they're literally leaving everything they know. But I want to try to think, how do we modernize discipleship in the world we are today? Because I don't think the enemy will get us to think we got to change all these things about our life in order to do it. And I believe that we just need to tweak some things we're already doing and include people in it. In fact, I would say the biggest difference between mentorship and discipleship is mentorship is adding something to your calendar, and discipleship is including someone in your calendar. Does that make sense? Like, mentorship means you got to add one more thing to your busy life, which many of you guys are busy. Just to get an idea of the people who would want to be mentored by most tend to have already gone through certain stages of life, but every stage they go through makes them have less time. For example, if you guys also, I'm a very interactive person. I almost think I should have been a stand-up comedian, but I luckily got saved by God, and there's part of it, the residue of it. But so with interaction, if you guys don't mind raising your hands, when we talk about time and who we'd want to be mentored by, how many of you guys have a full-time job? Anyone, raise your hand if you have a full-time job. All right, so that's good. That's like, we want to get, no, keep it up. And raise them high, too. We need to really see it. So these are the full-time jobs. Keep your hand up if you have kids as well. Well, if you're married. Okay, and if you have kids, keep them up. Okay, so these, really high, everyone that has your hand up. These people, I just want you guys to really look, because these people are really important, but also there's something you need to know about these people. They don't have time. They just don't have time. You can put them down. Like, these are the people that do not have time. And so if you're thinking mentorship, I got to meet someone, add something to my calendar, that's going to be really hard. But if you think discipleship, I need to include someone in my calendar, then that changes everything. It's come and follow me. Follow me into my personal life. Maybe it's like, what are you doing for fun that you could actually have someone join you with? We often think about, like, it's got to be this going through the Bible together, going through a book together, and there can definitely and should definitely be, I think, be elements of that, but it could start with just come hang with me. Like, any of you guys a part of the revival that is happening in our nation of pickleball? There's a pickleball revival in our nation. I'm praying desperately, God, would you align us with that revival that is happening? And it requires 2 people, last time I checked. And so if you can bring someone with you, my question is, if you like to golf, if you like to pickleball, I was trying to think of, because I am a man, I know more than what I'm seeing. I was like, what are some of the revivals or things that have happened in the last couple of years, like big hobbies, and shout them out if you have one. But one that stood out is, I guess I heard this recently for females, is that there was a revival of yeast bread making or something like that. It sounds really nasty when I hear, like, you got to put something in a bottle and, like, over time make bread. Have y'all heard of this? I know if it sounds strange, you got to Google it or ask someone who's doing it. But there's these different things that we like to do. I love movies. I love Marvel movies. And so it's like, I like Spike Ball a lot. What can you bring people into? That's not that hard, and youth might feel like it's not spiritual, but discipleship is caught more than it's taught. And if we don't disciple the next generation, the world would love to do it. The world is doing it. And so we want them catching things off of godly people that are seeking after him, not where the culture does it. The second one I would say is family life. Family is like, can you even just bring someone over for dinner or for a meal? Or even bold would be maybe a vacation or a getaway or something where, do you know how many broken homes, divorced families, non-intentional parents there are that this generation is growing up under, that just the mere act of being around a family that's not perfect, but is seeking God, even if we would just say failing forward, that's a huge thing. I'd actually define discipleship because the biggest excuses I often see is they'll say, one, I don't have time. That's why I think discipleship it's joining. It's not the lie of, I got to add one more thing. Or two, they'll say, I don't feel qualified. That's why I don't disciple someone. And I think that's sincere. I think that's real. But here's what I would say. If I ask you, do you feel qualified to disciple someone? Because I think that's the enemy's question. He goes at it, are you not qualified to do this? We'd probably say, no, I don't feel qualified to disciple. Some of us are like, no, I can. But there's a lot I found that's a big common reason is I don't feel qualified. But I don't think that's the right question. I define discipleship as frequently following someone who is spiritually a couple steps ahead of you. So frequently following someone who is spiritually a couple steps ahead of you. And so I don't ask, are you qualified? I'm asking you today, do you feel that you are spiritually a couple steps ahead of some of the younger people around you? Not young people, just people younger than you spiritually. Because that's the better question. You are a couple steps ahead, a couple stages ahead of someone younger in the faith. So you have a lot to offer. Honestly, even if it was just through pain or suffering or like learning the hard way, there's a lot of people that are actually, I think, very qualified to disciple and to say, I want to get you further, faster. It's like the heart cry of parents. I don't want you to go through what I had to go through, so I'm setting a foundation for you to build on top of. I see a mom looking at their two daughters right now. The other thing is, I might need help. I don't know why this is reconnecting right now, but I might need help going to the slide with the three arenas. So there's basically your personal life, your family life, and then your church life. Church life is, are you serving? Can someone join you as you serve? Maybe your small group, whatever arena that you're in, that they could come and connect with you in your space. And then the fourth one is, personal life, family life, work life, church life, and the work life. This is really, really big. I want to admit, I know that this can't happen for every job, but how helpful is it in a day where I would say colleges can guarantee debt more than a job after you graduate, that if you could actually learn from someone who's doing what you want to do. This is very pertinent to me. Yesterday, there's a 15-year-old kid that I'm kind of pouring into, and I took him with all my friends who are more in their 20s and 30s to play spike ball. And then afterwards, he said, hey, Grant, we're driving back, and he's like, Grant, I feel like I keep getting affirmed as a communicator and as a preacher. And these kids like legit sharing the gospel. This kid said, and I know it's because of who he's hanging out with, another guy that I've introduced him to who's like legit goes to Broadway, if you know what that is, in Nashville, and shares the gospel every Friday. And this kid said, because I said, hey, bro, I gotta drive back. I can take you to my house, and you could stay at my house, or you could stay at the park, and your parents can pick you up. But I took him to the park. I could not take him back because I had to fly here. And he said, oh, it's fine. I'll just stay at the park. I'll probably have to be in an hour. I'll just, legit, so sincerely, innocently. He's like, I'll just share the gospel with people while I wait for my mom. And I'm just thinking, bro, I didn't want to tell him, like, people don't talk like that. People that are your age don't just nonchalant, like, I'm going to share the gospel. But it's because of who he's been around. And so he then asked me if he's like, I'm getting called to, like, communicating. I'm getting affirmed in this gifting. Would you be open to me following you and ever like being with you when you speak? And I have a church I'm speaking at in San Diego in about a month. I'm like, would you want to go to this with me? They pay for the flight for another person. And he's like, dude, he just like blew up. You could just tell this was like so cool for him. And just think about this. There's like 1,000 sermons that you cannot remember that have been preached in your lifetime. But we'll never forget the moments where someone believed in us, invested in us, put their neck on the line for us, invited us in. These are huge moments for us. And you have the opportunity, no matter where you think you are in life, you have the opportunity to do that for people here. And so, one second, I just need to get back to this. I want to show you a practical person who I've seen do this in the church today. Sorry, there it is. If you can show the picture of there it is. Okay. This guy, his name is Scott, and I saw him do this where he basically discipled the guy in the blazer. You'll see him. He discipled the guy in the blazer, and I asked him, what is this a picture of? Who's the guy on the far right? And he said, that's the guy who I disciple. And I said, wait, what is he? And he was some high school kid. And I said, no way. So is the guy on the left who I think he is that a guy who discipled you? And he smiled. He's like, yeah, it is. And I don't know about y'all, but you don't really see that a lot where basically I asked him, what is this from? Where is this picture from? He said the guy on the far left had never met the guy I discipled, and I had never met the guy on the far right who my disciple discipled. And so just think the guy on the far left had never met any of the two guys on the far right. And I just think that's pretty amazing. Like, I think when you look at 2 Timothy 2:2, Paul's talking to the person he discipled. So that's one generation or one stage talking to the second person and saying, hey, what you have heard from me, I want, in the presence of many witnesses, I want you to entrust to others, that's a third generation or third stage, and entrust to other faithful men who will then be able to teach others also. That's 4 stages that Paul to Timothy and then to another who teach and train another. This is what we do. Like, this is hopefully what we would get to heaven and get to say, not that we did all these different things, but that we meet people that don't even know who we are, and we don't even know who they are, but we discipled others who discipled others. And I just think that's like a big point of like the scorecard of what could happen. And so what does it practically look like? I think that you really need to assess, where are you in this journey of discipleship? There's the learner phase, which is when you are still getting poured into, but you've yet to make the commitment to pour into someone else. There's many ages, and there's many people that have been to church for many years that could still technically be in the learner stage. Or there could be a brand new believer who's like, man, I'm in that learner, but I do want to do what Jesus did. I do want to do what Jesus said. And that would be moving to the leader stage. And then after that, the disciple maker stage. And then after that, the multiplier stage. And each one of these has a distinction. In fact, I would say for the leader stage, you might say, no, I am a leader. People call me a leader. I do lead. And I do want to differentiate when the kingdom scorecard of leadership that I think we can manage people. I think we can influence people. I think we can train and even teach people. But leadership, the way Jesus did it, was this, I have people following me. Also, there's a quote where you might say, hey, I'm a leader. But I would ask, again, who is following you? And if no one technically, you have not communicated, or you have not said, hey, come and join me, then I don't know if it was technically leader. I would say an influencer, I'd say an impactful or an intentional person. But John Maxwell, he says, if you think you are a leader, but you look behind you and no one's following you, and technically, you're just taking a walk. And again, I think personally walking is a very healthy thing to do. I think walking's great. I think we should be a people that walk. I just don't think that we should say that's leadership. Again, you can influence, you can impact, you can manage people, you can be in charge. But the kingdom leadership, the way Jesus did it, was I replicate people. I follow me as I follow Christ. I will make you something by following me. I want to get into something really practical too here is, and again, I don't care what age this is. Some of you guys might be thinking, I do want to disciple someone. I do want to also get discipled. And so for those who, whatever age you are, especially though, I want to say to the young people who are 40 and under or 30 and under or 25 and under or whatever age, especially young singles, please do not waste your singleness. Please don't waste this time where you have so much time and generations before you have so much wisdom. I jokingly said in the last service, there's this stage people don't talk about. It's the gift of singleness. I know it doesn't feel like a gift when you're single, but there's a stage. You know how I talked about time and being married, having kids, and full-time job? If I reverse that and talk to young people, there is this stage right now where you're so focused in the world, say get married or just go out or have fun and just experience. Even we've turned college into an experience instead of a training ground. Where it's just like, let me find myself, or no, that's not what it's supposed to be. That's how you end up anxious after you graduate. That's how you end up like stressed. That's how you end up stuck even, because eventually you're like, I gotta get a job that just pays, not in my calling. But if you could use that time where you have a season. Again, Paul calls it the gift of singleness, and I want you to see it as a gift where you're seeking discipleship, because you don't have to ask your parents for permission, and you don't yet have to ask your spouse for permission. You can just go. Like, again, I'm married 3 years, and I knew what I was signing up for when I got married, because I knew I used to be able to just go to things. And now I'm hanging out with the bros. They're like, hey, let's play spike ball. You know what? Let's play tonight. And I'm like, I used to be like, yeah, bro, I think I'm down. 1 second. I just got to pray real quick. I'm texting my wife. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm in. I used to just make decisions. I used to just buy random things on Amazon. Now I'm like, oh, it's over 50. Okay, I guess I'm not going to buy this random thing I don't need. Like, thank God. But there's this free time. And imagine if that time and that foundation could be based on the wisdom of generations before us, or anyone who's gone stages before us, is like leverage that time. But here's some practical insight. Just how do you ask someone to disciple you? This is very practical, is just a couple things. 2 things I'll start with is, if I ever ask someone, especially if I'm telling young people, I'll be honest with you guys, I try to train young people to trick older people into discipling them. And these are my tricks. And I think you can use them for any generation. You may be like, nah, I'm a newlywed and I want to get married by some people that have been married. Or, oh, I'm having my first kid, or I'm having my 3rd kid, or I want to get married by some amazing parents. Or, hey, there's someone who is ahead of me in my work I have so much respect for, and I want to get mentored by them or discipled by them or poured into by them. These are my tricks on how to potentially do that. Because it could be nervous. Asking someone to disciple you is almost as nervous, makes me as nervous as asking someone to date. Like, because there's almost nothing, if you think about it, where you put yourself out there and say, hey, will you take me, kind of? Like, will you commit to a relationship with me? Especially a man to another man. And if you've been hurt or feel a fatherlessness, it's like, you want to be wanted, and it can be nervous. So these are some things I would say have helped other people ask other people to disciple them. One is, I always say, share personal momentum with them. Like, what are some things that God's entrusted you with because of your hunger that you're like, hey, I've started to lead this or do this or whatever it is, but I have a couple things I'm leading. I'd love for you to pour into me. I'm going to invite the band up, because also as you're thinking about this, I want you to think, what are some things that you can do to make the next step in discipleship? I want to give some time for you to think through that. Second is the I see in you. That's like basically, I see in you is very powerful words from older people to younger people, where you could say, hey, I see this in you. How many of us remember the first time someone older saw a gift in us? Or just like that, the kid's name was Max. He told me, people are starting to say I have this gift. That's legit changed his mind to start thinking, I want to start growing in this gift. Seeing something in someone is very powerful. I would say if you're asking someone to disciple you, maybe you reverse that and say, hey, I have this things I'm doing, personal momentum, and then I see in you that you're really good at this. You're very intentional here. You're doing, like, I also notice in you these things. I think I've never thought of this, like Peter, the first thing he says to Jesus is like, I'm a man of unclean lips, and he sees who Jesus is. He's like, I'm unworthy. That we would reverse the I see in you, and this is why I would like to disciple you. If you're thinking about dating, I mean, this is romancing the person. This is like, hey, I'm intentional, I'm thoughtful. I take this seriously also too. Third is, this is huge. What are 2 to 3 areas you would like to grow? And again, I'm saying all ages. You may be like, hey, I just had my first kid, or I just had my third kid, or I'm going into the empty nester season. It might be I'm going into college. I'm looking for my first job. I just got my first job. Whatever it is, who's there that's a little bit ahead. And don't just say, will you disciple me? I've found it's very helpful to say, can you help me learn how to do this, this, and this? This is what I'm trying to figure out right now in this season. And just be clear and specific, because it can be overwhelming if it's like, hey, will you disciple me? But if you could say, will you just pour into me in these areas, is really, really practical and helpful. And it just like Max, the kid, asked, I'm trying to learn how to communicate. I now know what to include him in. I'm like, hey, you should come with me to this. That's where you can learn. Fourth is no additional time needed. Again, I've already kind of talked through this. You're not adding something to your calendar. When I remember asking a guy to disciple me once, I put my hand on his shoulder. He's like, I'm doing all this. I think, all right, I could tell I'm getting over the hurdles of why he would maybe say no. And then I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, look, I already know you're thinking, because he was a great leader. I'm like, I know you're busy. I am not asking, you don't ever have to meet with me for like a year. I will come to you. I will move my time and my calendar, because I have time and you have wisdom. I will move my time around you to join. Next is the word disciple. I think just be considerate. Maybe the word disciple, sometimes I'll say, hey, will you pour into me if I think that word might intimidate them, or will you mentor me, or can I just learn from you? Next would be join what they like to do. This is huge. Funny story is, when I was like 23, there was a guy I wanted to be discipled by. He was the architect for this new startup called Walmart. Have y'all heard of it? Big store. And it's not a beautiful store, but they're everywhere and they're massive. So he was a very wealthy man. He helped a lot of big ministries. And he was just such a godly guy. I wanted to be discipled by him. So again, I'm tricking people, y'all, for the gospel's sake. But I found out, you got to find out, what do they like to do? Because everyone usually wants to convert other people to do what they like to do. And so I found out he liked to do this thing people, for whatever reason, like to do called jogging. And I don't like jogging, but he did. And so I met with him, and at the end of it, I got his number and I texted him that night. He's one of those guys that always texts like 5 a.m., 9 miles, the Nike app, all that kind of stuff on social media. You guys no one jogs without sharing that they jogged, you know? And so they make stickers for those people. I call them participation trophies, actually. And so I knew he was this kind of guy, and I said, bro, I've been trying to get into running so much, and I saw that you like to run. Would you be open to letting me join you? And the guy was like, and he had already said, hey, I already asked, hey, can we meet a little more regularly? He said, no. So ironically, when I came back different, hey, can I ever run with you? He's like, okay, absolutely. If you want to run, how about this? Meet me tomorrow, if you're serious about it, at 4. And I'm just like, oh my God, why do you guys do it this way? Like, why do you have to? So I was checking my calendar, and I can't tell him I got something going on. So I show up, and I love to say, y'all, this was like one of my best stories, but the reality is this dude didn't even show up. I'm there 4 a.m., downtown Dallas at the time, where his offices were. It's so sketchy. About 5 a.m., I'm realizing, okay, this guy's not coming. So around 7 a.m., I get a text from him, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. When I said 4, I should have clarified I meant 4 p.m. And I'm thinking, yes, like, I'm so glad. Because this bro knows I'm so serious about getting poured into that I would even show up at 4 a.m., which requires, if you're going to disciple someone, I'm not saying everyone's ready. I'm saying they do have to be hungry. They do have to be faithful. They do have to be available. They do have to be teachable. But all of a sudden, I started running with this guy. I ended up doing half marathons. I've done so many things I've literally ran with this guy so many times, and we have conversations, and I'm saying, find what they like to do. And invite people into what you like to do. You're gonna do it anyway. Why not have a shadow while you're doing it? Why not have someone that brings life to it? And then lastly, especially if you're gonna ask someone else, is eventually, like the disciples, hey, can I help? How can I take something off your plate? If I'm gonna follow you, if I'm gonna join you, even if you're just inviting me for dinner, I'm gonna bring some food as well, or I'm gonna bring this. And all of a sudden, it's this mutually beneficial, life-giving relationship. And so, just in closing, can I give y'all just like 2 minutes to talk to whoever you're with, and I just would want you to think through 2 questions. Who could I ask to disciple me, and who could I ask to disciple? And then what could the next step look like in obedience towards the discipleship relationship or a mentorship relationship? So basically, who can pour into me that I can ask? Who can I ask to pour into? Who's God prompting, the Holy Spirit prompting right now? And then what could the next step of obedience look like? I just want to give just 2 minutes to briefly say that to your neighbor, and then the band will lead us in some worship.